Hi, this is Annie with Wildflower and Stitch. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be making these really cute purple lilac granny squares. This granny square is part of my state flower granny square project, and the purple lilac is the state flower of New Hampshire. Two things before we get started with the tutorial. First of all, this is an easy intermediate level tutorial. So while I will be showing you step by step how to make the granny square, I will not go into a lot of detail for very basic crochet stitches and techniques. So if you're very new to crochet, I would recommend you start with one of my beginner-friendly tutorials before moving on to this one. A second thing to mention is that this is my original design. You are more than welcome to use the squares that you make with this tutorial in any of your crochet projects. I do appreciate it when you give me credit as the designer of the granny square, and I will include super simple guidelines in the description of this video on how you can do that. To make this granny square, you are going to need yarn, 3 different colors if you want to make your purple lilac flower in 2 colors and then have 1 background color. The yarn that I'm using is this Hobie Rainbow 8/8 cotton yarn, and this is a number 3. It doesn't say it here. The newer packaging shows the number 3 weight yarn, but basically a DK yarn. And with this yarn, I am using a crochet hook sized 4.5 millimeters. And with this hook, this yarn, and my tension, this granny square ends up being about 4 by 4 inches. Then you're also going to need a yarn needle for weaving in your ends and a pair of scissors. We are going to start our granny square from the middle. So we will first make the center of the flower. So pick whatever color you want to use for the center and we'll get started. I'm going to start my granny square by making a slip knot. And I put it on my hook. And then I chain 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I will bring this together into a ring by slip stitching here into that very first stitch. So just insert my hook, grab that yarn, pull it through, and pull it through the loop on my hook. If you wanted to, you could of course start with the magic ring or any other method that you prefer. All right, then I will chain 1. And now for the center of the flower, I am going to need 8 single crochet stitches around the ring that I just created. And for me, this chain 1 that I just chained here is going to count as my first single crochet. So I'm going to make 7 actual single crochets. So I insert my hook in the very middle of this ring, right here, not here where we see that very obvious opening, but just underneath it, in the middle. We grab the yarn, 2 loops on our hook, and over and pull through 2. It's a single crochet. I'll make another one, insert in the middle. I can see it a lot better now. Grab the yarn, pull it through, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through 2. So I have so far 2 single crochets and a chain 1, which is going to count as my first single crochet. So I keep working single crochets around the ring. Now I know some people don't count that chain 1, initial chain 1, as a single crochet here. And if you don't, that's completely fine. Actually, I think that's technically the right way. The reason I do count it is because I feel that if I don't and I switch to a different color for the next round, I'll have like a weird bump in this center part. So yeah, it's just the personal preference. So if you don't count that chain one as anything, that is completely fine. The only thing that's going to really matter is that once we're done with all of our stitches, we have 8 stitches here on the outside edge that we plan to use for our next round. We need our 8 stitches that we plan to work into. That's what matters. All right, let's see how many I got so far. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I actually have one too many because this loop on my hook, so because of the way I count my stitches and count that chain one as something, the loop on my hook is going to count as one of my 8 stitches. So right now I have, counting the stitches on the outside, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, the loop on my hook. And now I'll close this round. I close it here by slip stitching here into that first stitch there on the outside edge. It's the first stitch that I just counted as one of my 8 stitches. So I'll just insert my hook under both of those loops. I grab that yarn, pull it through, and pull it through the loop on my hook. And then I chain 1. And I can fasten off. And now I'm going to show you, in case you count your stitches differently, I'm going to show you how these stitches are going to count as my 8 stitches. So for my next round, I plan to work into this one. This is the stitch that I just slip stitched into, as well as this one, which is the last stitch of the previous round. So both of these are going to count as stitches for me. And I have 8 stitches on the outside. So if you do anything differently there, just make sure that you have 8 stitches that you plan to work into for our next round. For our second round, we are going to bring in the color that we want to use for the petals of the Purple Lilac. I have this purple color. And for this flower, we are working for 3D petals. And I am going to start by attaching my yarn. And I'm going to attach it with the slip knot again, like I did with when I first started the granny square. So I make a slip knot, I put it on my hook, pull it tight, and then I will attach my yarn into one of these stitches here. Remember how we made sure that we have 8 stitches on the outside edge? I'll go ahead and attach my yarn into one of these. I'm using my weaving as you go method, so I'm going to attach it here where I have this previous yarn end. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in this tutorial on the weaving as you go method, but I will link to a separate tutorial in case you're interested. So I pull that yarn through and I pull it through the loop on my hook. And then pull it to the start of this stitch here to the right side end, and I'll turn my work around and I pull this yarn end tight to make sure that it's nice and sturdy when I start working. All right, and now each one of these 4 petals is worked exactly the same way. And we start the petal by chaining 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. We chained 3 stitches. Then we will work a treble crochet into the same stitch. So same stitch where we have this chain 3, we work treble crochet. So yarn over twice, insert in the same stitch, grab the yarn and pull it through. I have 4 loops on my hook. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Treble crochet. After the treble crochet, I will work a double treble crochet. And double treble crochet sounds complicated, but it's exactly the same as treble crochet with 1 more yarn over in the beginning. So yarn over 3 times for double treble crochet. Insert in the same stitch still. So where I have the initial chain 3, I have the treble crochet, I insert in the very same stitch. I grab the yarn, pull up a loop. Now I have 5 loops on my hook. And I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. That's a double treble crochet. After the double treble crochet, I will make a picket with just 2 chain stitches. So right here, I chain 2. Like so. Then I'll go to the second stitch from my hook. So first stitch, second stitch, and I slip stitch there into that second stitch. Slip stitch. And that's my pickets. Then I move on to the next stitch here on the outside edge, and I will work these same stitches but in reverse. So I will start with the double treble crochet. So yarn over 3 times, insert in that next stitch. There's nothing in the next stitch yet. Pull the yarn through. I have 5 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Double treble crochet. Next I will work a treble crochet in the same stitch. So yarn over twice for treble crochet, insert in the same stitch. Pull the yarn through, 4 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So now I have a double treble crochet and a treble crochet in the same stitch. And at this point, I chain 3, and I slip stitch back into the same stitch. Same stitch where I have this double treble crochet and a treble crochet, I slip stitch there to secure my first petal, like so. And that is my first petal. And I will work the rest of the petals exactly the same way. And to start a new petal, I'm going to start it in the next stitch. So after I secure that chain 3, I slip stitch to the next stitch. Like so. And now in this stitch, I will start by chaining 3. And this is the start of my second petal. So we work 3 more petals exactly the same way we worked the first one. If you want to see again how we made the petal, feel free to rewind, go back here, and watch how we made this one. And then make 3 petals exactly the same way. And once you're done, meet me back here. All right, I have worked my petals, and now I'm ready to close this last one, or secure this last one. So the last chain 3, I slip stitch in the same stitch where I have the double treble crochet and a treble crochet for this last petal. So just a slip stitch there. Here we go. And that concludes that round. Now, before we can start working on the square around the flower, we are going to be creating loops of chain stitches behind the petals. And these loops are going to allow us to crochet the square around the flower. So we will continue one more round with this color. So I am here where I slip stitch to secure that last petal. And now I'm going to chain 4 stitches right from this spot between these 2 petals. You might need to pull them apart a little bit, but I chain 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I turn my work around. This is the back side of my work now. This loop of chain stitches goes over that first petal, and I secure it between these 2 petals. And when securing these loops, I always like to pick up 1 stitch from this petal and 1 stitch from the next one. So they are the 2 loops that are the closest to each other. So I pick up both of those, and then I just slip stitch. Like so. I chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now this loop is going to go over that next petal. And again, I secure it right here, picking up those 2 loops. Picking up 2 loops, the reason I do that is that I find that if I only pick up 1 loop, it's going to pull the petals in weird ways. So 2 loops just makes it a little bit sturdier. There we go. I chained 4 again. This is my 3rd loop now. It goes over this petal. And same thing as before. Pick up 2 loops from here. 1 and 2. And slip stitch. There it is. And 1 more loop. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And let's see, I have all these yarn ends here. But I do the same thing. I'll pick up 1 loop, which is where this first loop kind of starts. And then I'll find another loop on the other side, which is kind of underneath here. A little tricky to get into. If you find a different spot where you prefer to slip stitch, you can of course do that. I'm showing you what's my preference here. There we go. So 2 loops and slip stitch. And then I'll make 1 more slip stitch to the beginning of this first loop here, just to secure it a little better there. Then I chain 1, and I can fasten off this collar. Here we go. All right, we are going to start working on the background next. So go ahead and grab your background color. I'm using this gray. And I will start by attaching my yarn with a slip knot again. And as always, I will rarely say that anything is the only right way of doing something. So if you have a way of attaching your yarn that you prefer, by all means, use your way. All right, so I'm going to attach my yarn into the beginning of one of these loops here in the back of my work. And since I'm still using my weaving as you go method, I'm going to attach it where I have this previous yarn end. But otherwise, it doesn't matter. And in the beginning of any of these loops works. So I just insert my hook through the loop. And then I pull that yarn through. And I pull it through the loop on my hook. And then just make sure that it's right in the beginning of that loop. Turn my work around and I pull that yarn end again tight. There we go. And I'm going to start by chaining 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And now I'm going to work this next round into these loops I created in the previous round. And if we look here what I have done, I cannot see the loops here because they are covered with this round that we're about to start now. So what I see here behind each petal, what I have in this loop, the loop is right there behind the petal, is I have 3 double crochet stitches here, a cluster of 3 double crochets, a granny stitch. Then I have chained 2 for the corner here, and then I have 3 more double crochets. In the next one, same thing, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. So that's what we will do in this round. So basically we're just creating one of these corners in each one of those loops. And that's going to create the square shape. So I'm here, I chain 3, and this chain 3 is going to count as my first double crochet stitch for my first cluster. So I work 2 more double crochets right into this loop. Not into an individual stitch, but around the loop. So I go yarn over, insert in the space, grab that yarn, pull up a loop, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Just double crochet stitches. So now I have 3 double crochets here since that initial chain 3 counts as a double crochet. I chain 2 for the corner, and then I work 3 more double crochets into the same space. Into the same space. First double crochet, second double crochet, and a third double crochet. If you need to adjust your stitches a little bit, make sure that they are sort of evenly spaced out. But that is my first corner for my granny square. And after I have worked all these stitches into the loop, I'll just go straight into the next loop. By the way, don't be scared of pulling down these petals so that you see what you're doing. They are going to be totally fine. All right, so after those 3 double crochets in the previous loop, I don't do anything in between here. I just go straight into the next loop. So yarn over, insert in the space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's my first double crochet for this second loop. I work 2 more for this cluster. And here's my first cluster of 3 double crochet stitches. I chain 2 for the corner, and then 3 more double crochets into the same space. here we go. There's my second corner. So far I have created half of this round, and now I'll do the same thing for these 2 remaining loops. So the same thing as this latest corner we made. The first one is a slightly different because we start with the chain 3, but work 2 more corners exactly the same way we worked this one. So just 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets, all in the same loop. So work 2 more and then meet me back here when you're ready to close the round. All right, I have worked all around. As we can see, there's a tiny square behind this purple lilac. Now I'm going to close this round. So the last thing I've done here, I've completed those last 3 double crochet stitches for that last loop. And now I will close this round. And I like to close it here. We chained that chain 3 here in the beginning, that counted as our first double crochet. I'll go into that 3rd chain stitch, which is kind of the stitch that's sitting here on the outside edge now. So let's go under both of those loops, and I slip stitch there. There we go. And then I'll slip stitch my way to this next corner. I usually prefer start my rounds in the corner whenever possible. So I'll just go under the next stitch. So under both of those loops, slip stitch. In the next one, under both of those loops, slip stitch. And then slip stitch into this corner space. And I start my round here. And now this round is going to be exactly the same as the previous one, except that we are going to be working 1 more cluster for each side. Here we have 2 on the previous round. Well, now as our square keeps growing, we're going to have 3 clusters on each side. And I'm going to start right here. I chain 3. I'm going to count as my first double crochet for the corner. I make 2 more double crochets for this cluster. So we are working clusters of 3 double crochet stitches, exactly like the previous round. And I chain 2 for the corner. And then I work 3 more double crochets into that corner space. So the last round we worked into those loops, and now we are working into these corner spaces and into the gap between the previous round's clusters. So here is my first corner, 2 clusters of double crochet and a chain 2 for the corner. Now I'll create another cluster between these 2 clusters. So the clusters of the previous round here on the side, I go right in between those clusters. And I make 3 double crochets into this space. If you have made granny squares in the past, you already know the drill. This is the most basic granny stitch. All right, 3 double crochets. Then I move on to the next corner space and I work 3 double crochets. Here we go, a cluster of 3 double crochets. I chain 2 for the corner and 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. All right, and that completes my second corner. So that's all we do actually for the rest of the granny square. So go ahead and work the rest of this round, working 2 clusters of double crochet separated by a chain 2 in the corners, and then 1 cluster of double crochets in the middle of the side between those 2 clusters of the previous round. If you need to see how we made the corners and the sides, the side cluster, feel free to rewind and go back here. Make the rest of the side clusters, so these 3 clusters, exactly the same way we made this one. And then the 2 remaining corners are going to be exactly the same as this corner here. So work all around and then meet me back here. All right, I have worked all around and now I'm ready to close my round again. And just like the previous round, I close it here into that 3rd chain stitch that started this round. I like to go under both of these loops here. Like so, and slip stitch. And once again, I slip stitch my way to this next corner. So go under the loops of the next stitch. In the next one. And then slip stitch into the corner space. And I'm going to start my next round, and it's going to be exactly the same as the previous one, with the difference that now we will have 2 clusters here on the side. So, I mean 2 clusters here and this side spaces, and then of course for the entire side we will have 4 clusters because there's going to be a cluster on each corner space for each one of these sides. Okay, so chain 3 for the first double crochet, 2 more double crochet into the same corner space. I'll chain 2 for the corner, and then 3 more double crochet into this same corner space. Like so. There's my first corner. And now I'll just keep going exactly the same way I did with the previous round. The only difference here is that as my square keeps growing, I will have 1 more cluster here on each side. So I'll just go straight into that gap between the previous round's clusters. 3 double crochets in here. Like so, and then 3 double crochets into this gap as well, and then to my next corner space where I'll create 3 double crochet, chain 2 and 3 double crochet. So that's how I work all around my square. You know the drill now, so just go ahead, work all around your square, and then meet me back here. All right, I have worked all around. And now I'm ready to close this round. And once more, I close it exactly the same way I did the previous 2 rounds. So into that 3rd chain stitch under both of those loops. And I slip stitch there. And then I slip stitch my way to this next corner to start my final round for this square. And the final round is going to be exactly the same way as the previous ones. So start with the chain 3, which is going to count as my first double crochet for my first cluster. 2 more double crochet stitches into the same corner space. I'll chain 2 for the corner and 3 double crochet stitches into the same corner space. Here we go, my first corner. Then, exactly the same as the previous round, I move on to the side, 3 double crochet stitches into the gap between the previous round's clusters. And that's how I keep going all around. Now again, since the square keeps growing, I will have one more cluster here on each side of the square. So after this round, each one of my sides is going to have 5 clusters of double crochet. So go ahead, work all around your square, and then one more time, meet me here when you're done. All right. I have just completed my last round, and I'll just join this round the same way I joined the previous ones. So slip stitch into the 3rd chain stitch. Slip stitch, and I chain 1, and then I can break my yarn and fasten up this last color. Here we go. So here is my purple lilac granny square for New Hampshire. The only things that I have left here is first of all weaving in the rest of these ends. Most of these have actually been woven in into 2 different directions already, since I was weaving them in as I go. But since there's a little bit left, I'll just probably weave in the rest of those. And then block the squares. Both of them, because this one has not been blocked yet either. But otherwise, that's it. I really do hope that you enjoyed making your purple lilac granny square. I would really love to see pictures of your granny square if you're posting them on Instagram, so feel free to tag my account at Wildflower and Stitch. Thank you again so much for watching this tutorial. If you liked it, please make sure to subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment, like this tutorial, and share this with a crochet friend. All of those things do help me a lot, and I appreciate it so much. Thanks so much again, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!